Welcome back to this weekend's agenda. Today we are tackling something that affects every family: children misbehaving and us parents losing our cool. And new research out this week shows that 1 in 4 Aussie parents are feeling stressed out about their child's bad behaviour. The study comes from the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, and the paediatrician behind the research, Dr. Anthea Rhodes, joins us in the studio along with child psychologist Dr. Andrew Greenfield. Good morning to both of you.
Morning.
First of all, Andrea, you found that most families, most of these parents, they're just stressed out on a daily basis about their child's bad behaviour. Just take us through some of those other findings.
Yeah, absolutely. So we found that around 2/3 of parents told us they feel very stressed at least once a week, and around a quarter of parents, once or more a day, they feel overwhelmed and stressed by their child's behaviour. And frequently other things as well. They feel like they're impatient or losing their cool, with around a third of people saying they often lose their temper and feel guilty about it later. So a real message in these findings that if you're struggling as a parent at home with your kids' behaviour, you're not alone.
Definitely not.
And also that perhaps you may not feel you know where to go to for help, and that's common too, with around half of parents telling us they didn't feel confident in terms of where they might get some help to deal with things.
A third of parents saying that they become impatient too quickly, they think. That surprises me.
Yeah.
I would think it would have been more.
Yeah, so becoming impatient at least half, and then losing their temper over a third. And I think that, you know, kids know how to push our buttons, and lots of parents say that they didn't really know they even had a temper till they had a child. But, you know, what this is telling us is that there's no perfect child and there's no perfect parent, and these type of situations are common. So some reassurance for parents that they're not alone, but also a real reminder that we need to support parents better with tools and strategies so that they can actually get through these challenging behaviours that happen every day.
Yeah, well, we've all felt it, that frustration slowly rising, and as you said, that pushing the buttons. But there are certain techniques that parents use. Most of us probably resort to yelling, but what are some of the others? Yeah,
so we asked parents in the last month what sort of strategies have they used when it comes to managing their kids' behaviour, and lots of parents are doing a great job. So the vast majority told us they use positive strategies, so things like, you know, encouragement and praise when behaviour is good, and also trying to talk with their kids and understand what's going on when behaviour is not so good. But we also found that, you know, some parents are using strategies that we know are not as effective and can in fact be harmful sometimes for children. And they include things like trying to make a child feel guilty or shameful to teach them a lesson, or threatening physical discipline, or even using physical discipline as a way to try and correct behaviour.
Well, smacking, it is a divisive issue. In your opinion, is it ever okay?
So smacking, and all physical discipline, in fact, we know from research is not okay for lots of reasons. It's in fact not as effective as we would like to think. Surprisingly, many parents still feel like it's something that will work, but research shows us that in the longer term, it doesn't teach a child about how we'd like them to behave, and in fact it can make behaviour worse. It gives a message that hitting's okay, and in fact even that it's a way to solve a problem. And so those children who experience physical discipline are in fact more likely to become aggressive themselves when trying to solve their problems. Yeah. It's also linked to other problems. In the short term, those children who experience physical discipline can sometimes be injured, and in the longer term there can be troubles with things like self-esteem and mental health and well-being. So lots of reasons why we should be encouraging parents to, you know, steer clear of those strategies and add some other tools to their toolkit when it comes to parenting.
Be a good role model for parenting.
Absolutely. So really modelling how you'd like your child to behave, as hard as it can be sometimes, is the #1 rule. We sometimes talk about staying out of the jungle. You know, when things are really deteriorating, don't jump in there and deteriorate as well. Try and keep your cool and actually, you know, model how you'd like your child to behave. It can be helpful to try and understand what's behind a behaviour and show them a way through that. Obviously, you have to set boundaries. Discipline is part of parenting, but using positive strategies works best.
Yeah, keep your cool. It sounds easier than it can be
sometimes. Much easier said than done.
But Andrew, you work directly with children and their parents. Do you think, are children getting naughtier, or are parents too soft these days?
I often talk to parents about what's called, everyone's heard about the terrible twos. I call it the terrible 2 to 17s.
Yes.
It's extending. There's always going to be a reason as to why children are misbehaving, as Anthea said. We have to tailor any strategies to their age, to their developmental level, whether they've got attention issues, they have learning difficulties, anxieties. We have to change that up. So we've got to be flexible as parents.
And have different strategies, because as you say, you know, many families have children of all different ages. I've got a 12-year-old, 9-year-old and 7-year-old. But, you know, and when they get to those teenage years, it's having those different strategies to use for those different ages,
No,
right,
that's
Andrew?
right. And it's about being, I always talk a bit to parents, it's about being in control, not controlling your child, but about being in control. If you're not in control as a parent, then, yeah, a lot of difficulties can arise. I generally talk about 4 main principles when I talk to parents. I talk about ignoring and choosing to ignore minor negative behaviour, so you have to pick your battles.
Yeah.
Second one is distraction, where, yes, they're distracted, but we have to distract them. If a child's nagging a parent, for example, can I have a lolly? They say no. We have to somehow move them on incredibly effectively onto something else. Often talk about consequences. Again, that can be difficult because you've got to find the most appropriate consequence, and sometimes kids couldn't care less about the consequence. And the last one is about time out, which I can probably talk for an hour on.
Time out for ourselves?
Well,
or for the kids?
Absolutely.
I mean, that is important,
and you're
isn't
right.
it?
It's absolutely about time out. And time out has to be used effectively. It's not just go to your room.
No.
It's got to be also, but as you said, time out for yourself.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Because it depends on how you're feeling on that day.
Absolutely.
Because your kid may do something and one day you just might turn a blind eye to it. Another day, it might just make your blood boil.
That's right.
What are your tips?
Yeah, definitely when it comes to parents managing their own stress, and we found that in our study as well, where parents feel stressed more often, they were also more likely to resort to strategies that don't work as well and that made them feel guilty about it later. So it's easier said than done, but taking time out for yourself as a parent can help you diffuse and disarm so that you're less likely to explode in those challenging moments. So, you know, some petrol in the tank so that you can actually get through the rough patches is really important.
And you're saying that what we all need to do is actually praise our kids more regularly.
Yes.
And the Royal Children's Hospital, they're asking parents to get involved in the Catch Them Being Good challenge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, tell us more about that.
Yeah, so look, when it comes to making effective changes to behaviour, we know that praise is better than punishment. It works better and it's better for kids. So kids are really hardwired to respond to attention. We all know that.
Yeah, they're just looking for our attention, aren't they?
They are, and we've been hearing all morning about how divided that is today with technology and busy life, and frequently when kids are behaving well, we ignore them because we're just relieved that they're not causing any hassles. But in fact, that's the time when they need the attention. So the best type of attention a child can get is positive attention when they're behaving well. And that doesn't mean a perfect morning where they've got themselves dressed, eaten, put their dishes away, stood at the door early. It just means tiny little things all the way. So we're really encouraging parents to take note of the everyday efforts and achievements that their kids are making and just acknowledge them. Well done, be specific about what it is that you've seen them do well, and you will see those behaviours grow.
Well, it's some great advice and very important advice. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I will be taking those tips on board this week. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
And kids, be good to your mum and dad. Jane and Pete.